So Murti says, man becomes what he wills. He is not molded by circumstances. He molds the circumstances. Ask yourself if you do that, and if you don't, start doing it. Spiritual realization is a growth from within, self-creative and self-determining. It is not too much to say that the nature of the resolve determines the nature of the final attainment, like the seed determining the plant. The nature of Zelem's resolve truly determined the nature of the final outcome of his embodiment. He did not achieve union with the sun on that mountain. We may never climb Everest, but we can climb the inner mountain of being and give ourselves to the sun, and the sun will give himself to us. Zelem got what he asked for. He wanted money for his education, so he got gold. Solomon got what he asked for. He could have asked for everything in the universe and all riches. He asked only for one thing, wisdom. And the motive for his desire for wisdom was to help and to counsel the people, that he might judge righteous judgment in all the matters and affairs of the people that he ruled. God added unto him abundance and riches because he wanted that understanding heart. The seed of Buddhahood is sown in the initial vow that the Bodhisattva makes. The initial vow of the Bodhisattva. Your vows today will determine whether you can achieve 51% or more of your karma balanced, your ascension in this life, and even what kind of an ascended master you may be and what you may be majoring on. Vows are very important, especially when the planet is reeling, as it even begins to touch the entering into the dark night of the spirit that is prophesied for these times. The entire later discipline is the cultivation and preservation of the initial vow. There are several forms of the Bodhisattva vow. One of the earliest was, we have crossed the stream of transmigratory existence. May we help the living beings to cross. We being liberated, may we liberate others. We being comforted, may we comfort others. We being finally released, may we release others. The following are the 10 traditional Bodhisattva vows. 1. To provide for the worship of all the Buddhas without exception. To maintain, this is 2, to maintain the religious discipline that has been taught by all the Buddhas and to preserve the teachings of the Buddhas. We preserve the discipline and the teachings by living them. There is no other way. All books eventually rot. Jesus said, heaven and earth may pass away, but my word shall live forever, because he trusted in you and me to keep that word a living flame in our hearts. 3. To see all the incidents in the earthly career of a Buddha, which means to experience the points of Buddhahood or Bodhisattvahood in our own lives. 4. To realize the thought of enlightenment. To honestly pursue enlightenment, which means washing out your brain of all nicotine, marijuana, incrustations, sugar, toxins, poisons, etc., until that brain becomes literally a crystal chalice for the mind of Christ. To practice all the duties of a bodhisattva, to acquire all the paramitas and purify all the stages of his career. 5. To mature all beings and establish them in the knowledge of the Buddha, namely all the 4 classes of beings who are in the 6 states of existence. I tell you that the ashram notes and our meditation on the ray of light from our hearts to every other light bearer, every other child of God in all cosmos, enables us to fulfill this vow. It's not that we contact every member of humanity. It is that we are contacting everyone in whom there is the potential light, the threefold flame. We are feeding them light. We are intensifying the light from that inexhaustible source that we have connected with. And they themselves will rise as we rise, because that tie to the heart is more and more strengthened. It is through just such simple exercises and meditations as we find in the ashram notes that Gautama Buddha established that thread of contact from his heart, which now sustains the entire evolution of this planet and keeps their threefold flames beating when they themselves give no light to it. Vow 6, to perceive the whole universe, which means to contain the mind of God. 7, to purify and cleanse all the Buddha fields, using the violet flame for the transmutation of all levels, of all places where those becoming the Buddha are. 8, to enter on the great way and to produce a common thought and purpose in all bodhisattvas. 9, to make all actions of the body, speech, and mind fruitful and successful. 10, to attain the supreme and perfect enlightenment and to preach the doctrine. The 4 great vows recited after every service by Zen Buddhists are: 1, however innumerable beings are, I vow to save them. 2, however inexhaustible the passions are, I vow to extinguish them. 3, however immeasurable the dharmas are, I vow to master them. 4, however incomparable the Buddha truth is, I vow to attain it. These vows we take in the name of our mighty I Am Presence and Holy Christ Self. We remember that we are in a period of Earth's history where we have been admonished since the time that Alpha gave his landmark dictation that the light may not be any longer given to those who misuse the light. Therefore, in our meditations, in our decrees, we must call for the light to go to those whom God ordains to receive it, to those in whom there burns a threefold flame and who are worshipers of God. So we have a particular assignment on this planet at this stage of our history to assist those who love the light. So we take these Buddhist vows in that regard, and we remember that on these foundations the Ascended Masters have given us the later dispensations. As I mentioned, Buddhist teaching emphasizes the importance of renewing the Bodhisattva vow every day. Before renewing his vow, the disciple confesses his transgressions before the Buddhas, repenting of all sins he has ever committed in the past. If we daily retire, confessing the wrongs we have done that day and renewing our vow before we go into the sleep state, the vow will be like an arrow whereby the soul can go out of the body into higher octaves. I suggest then that the vows be renewed after one has confessed one's wrongdoings to God, called on the violet flame for transmutation, and given the appropriate ashram rituals if we like. It is very sweet to go to sleep in the peace of these meditations, as well as in reading a psalm or the words of Jesus or the Ascended Masters. I would like to remind you of the 10 vows of Quan Yin because they are a part of our path. Each one begins with I desire, I vow. So I will give the rest of each one now. To quickly know the entire Dharma, which is to embody the teaching and what the teaching requires us to fulfill in this life as the work of our heart, head, and hand. The Dharma means 2 things: the teaching we internalize, and as a result of internalizing it, the work we accomplish, the mission we accomplish. So we speak about our Dharma, how the teaching internalized has fashioned our calling. To soon attain the eye of perfect wisdom, to quickly save all sentient beings, to soon attain the good and expedient method which leads to full enlightenment, to quickly board the prajna or wisdom boat, to soon transcend the bitter sea. The bitter sea refers to hardship and suffering, karma, and that 6th vow is the crux of our teaching on Phylos and the crux of what we face with this April 23rd syndrome. To quickly attain good discipline, the stability of meditation, and the way, the Eightfold Path of the Buddha. To soon scale the mountain of nirvana, which means to rise into our mighty I Am Presence, to quickly realize the unconditioned, that unconditioned suchness of which the Buddhas speak, the unconditioned which is without conditioning, the pure spheres of the causal body. To soon unite with the Dharmakaya, that is the higher body, the mighty I Am Presence, and the causal body. In Catholicism, members of religious orders today take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, which were first established by St. Francis of Assisi and followed by the early monastic orders. Dictating through me on January 27, 1985, Kuthumi formally inaugurated the Order of Francis and Clare within our community. This is a wonderful order, and you should consider whether you desire to be a part of it in your heart. There is no outer application. There is nothing required except you desiring to do so in your heart. Beloved, I underscore and bring to the fore of your attention now our order, the Holy Order of Francis and Clare, which has long been the underlying motive and purpose of many who serve here and throughout the field. I wish to inaugurate this order in this hour in a more organized way, that you might identify yourselves, whether on the celibate path or married, with the works that we strove to accomplish in the rebuilding of the Church on the cornerstone of purity, while being servants to all life. I would speak to you of our motto, which I would say today as obedience, as poverty, as chastity. May I speak upon these for a moment, for the obedience of our order is to the one we call love, Christ. Obedience to love in the person of Christ, in every ascended Master, and not Jesus alone. Obedience to the inner light and the inner calling, the foundation of those who walk in commemoration of the world teachers. The Order of Francis and Clare takes its name from a quaint period in history which was fraught with a personal Armageddon and vicious forces, every whit as nefarious as they are today. It also harks back to a limited understanding of Christ, yet in the inner mysteries of our hearts, we knew far more than we dared say. The order today goes beyond that which it was, to a new birth in the Aquarian age. And as you receive the mantle and the perception of the office, you forge that order and create out of it what must needs be. Thus, beloved hearts, chastity itself is purity. It is the purity of the chakras. It is the purity of the heart. It is the path of the sacred heart. It is the purity of the soul and the purification of body. Above all, it is the transmutation of all past karma. It is the dedication to the path of the ascension by the raising of that Kundalini fire. Poverty is the self-emptying, that one might be filled. Every day give the light away that is yours to give. Thus know the true way of Mother Poverty. The emptying that one might be filled is the nature of the path. Poverty is a love that is greater for others than for oneself. To these three virtues I add a fourth. It is the defense of the Mother Church. Also included in this order is the Order of the Holy Child, loved by Jesus, brought forth by Lanello, of what you have heard tell on the anniversary of the Summit Lighthouse. This Order of the Holy Child is the defense of the child in all of the 7 rays, the protection of the child, the education of the child, the teaching of the child. What is love? Giving and receiving. Some people don't know how to give, and other people don't know how to receive. We have to learn both. It is a path of purity that is the clarity in the heart to pursue the goal of life. It is a teaching of science and health and abundance, the teaching and the training of the child of the heart, your heart and other children, in the path of service, the path of freedom, and the path of holy orders. All of these things become a part of our word and our work. That's the end of the quote from Kuthumi. I'll explain to you that the Order of the Child was founded by Mark Prophet in 1951. It was a sacred order for legislators, rulers, directors of culture, and citizens who would promise to be, quote, ever mindful of the little child of the future, quote. Members of this order pledged to devote 1 minute per day in reading a few words inscribed on the certificate of membership. The certificate said, "In remembrance of his words, whosoever shall receive one such little child in my name receiveth me. Of such is the kingdom of heaven. Woe unto him who shall hurt one of these little ones, inasmuch as ye have done it unto the least of these, ye have done it unto me. I desire that my heart shall ever make me aware of the little child, who is always without in the concourse of time and space, and who is affected by my decisions and my acts. In knowledge of the fact that my acts combined with others do affect the destiny of my country, the human race, and our common future, I do enter wholeheartedly into the below pledge, realizing whether I make the pledge or not, I am still held fully accountable for every act. I unite therefore with others, that we may make a bond for good, that our common purpose before God, our common heart and mind will shine forth a golden ray of light to establish the greatest civilization ever on earth. Knowing also that if these principles be not adhered to, it is possible and imminent that this great civilization, like that of ancient Rome and others, may fall, decay, and decline, I should therefore work for our future without bias. This is the pledge. Before the God of the universe, I promise to be ever aware of the interests of mankind as an all, and of all who dwell in my country, rather than the few. I shall seek better government of the people, by the people, and for the people. As I act toward the least of humanity, I have acted toward the greatest. My thoughts shall be ever mindful of the little child of the future, every little child in whom is the breath of life. If ever I cannot act accordingly, I shall resign my authority over others. That is the conclusion of that vow. If you wish to read this material, it's in Kuthumi dictation published in the 1985 Pearls of Wisdom, Book 1. The dictation and the certificate and membership pledge for the Order of the Child are in that volume. On January 1st, 1987, Saint Germain gave an in-depth teaching on the importance of making and keeping the vow. We will listen to an excerpt of this dictation now, and I encourage you to take notes.
I would speak to you then of the principle of the vow, and why holy vows have been taken through the ages. A vow, beloved, is the victory of the oneness of the Word. A vow is more than a promise. It is more than a human word or a human contract. A vow is the pledging of one's life and being and soul to a mission or to a cause. Understand then that many of you have taken steps of commitment. In many cases, though not understood by yourselves, these commitments have been partial, where consciously or unconsciously the individual has said, I will keep a little part to myself. Or the individual has said, I will commit an hour a week or 3 hours a week to this or that community cause. And many have kept exactly the commitments they have made. Others have rushed forward in the emotion of the moment and the fervor of others' deeper spirituality to commit all and even to vow. Yet they have fallen by the wayside with the blowing of the strong cold wind or the enticements of the warmer winds of the south. Thus, beloved, I allow you to understand my heart and my life. According to the dispensation then given to me, I am able to do the following, and it is to vow my life, my causal body, and my service to planet Earth, so long as there are those in embodiment who are capable of making the identical vow. I will not tell you in numbers how many, for in some cases, one heart, so infilled by the Buddha Gautama, one heart, such a vessel of Maitreya, may count for many. But I will say that it is a tally of a geometry, of a weight of sacred fire, an omega balance in the earth, that will allow my presence to fully and finally intercede in all these things projected upon the screen of mankind's returning karma. Thus, beloved, we come to understand what is the principle of a holy vow. It is a commitment to serve in a holy order as a brother or a sister, to espouse certain virtues such as poverty, chastity, obedience. A vow is an entering into God, and it is God entering into oneself. A vow is a promise that one does not break, for one understands one has made this vow directly to his heart, and in so doing has evoked from the heart of God a commensurate measure of support, even privilege, even rank in the spiritual hierarchy of the planet. In order to make a vow, one must have had the maturity of thinking through a lifetime, whether or not one is willing to give an entire lifetime to such a cause. Today, the breaking of vows by priests or the religious has become commonplace. They have felt justified, for they have found the established church wanting. In the case where vows are made to human institutions or human beings, one can easily have a change of heart. But if the vow be made to the universal God, one can change institutions without breaking that vow. One can take a vow to sponsor the education of the heart on a planetary scale, and one can espouse that vow through every available avenue. Thus you understand, it is not good to make vows to the untrusty human consciousness, but rather to look into the face of God or one of his ascended representatives, and to know that one has the will, the disposition, and the character to enter in to such a vow. In the Old Testament, the vow was called a covenant. It was always made by God unto his people. The essence of the covenants, broken again and again by man and not God, were his promises to love, to protect, to illumine, and to care for his own, so long as they would love him by obedience, by refusing to go after other idols, including the idols of self and the fallen angels and the gods of Baal and materialism and death itself. One would think that a commitment to God in order to receive the promises should not so often have been broken. But all covenants have been broken, beloved. Thus the plight of the world and the seed of Israel and Judah today. Realize then that Christ came to give a new covenant, and that covenant was a transfer by his body and his blood of the renewal of the divine spark, a regeneration. And that new covenant, beloved, does come into full manifestation by the descent of the Holy Christ self in the fullness of Christhood in you. In other words, the covenant, which is the vow, is not fully enjoyed by both parties to that vow until it is claimed by both sides.
Saint Germain also gave a teaching on the vow on November 3rd, 1985, and we will listen to that excerpt.
Beloved hearts, to be an initiate of the seventh ray demands decision. The decision must be taken and the vow made. Without decision and the vow, you do not have the support of the heavenly hosts. If you say, maybe I will do this today, maybe I will be an adept tomorrow, maybe I will study alchemy on the next day, and maybe I won't. For after all, I am free. Saint Germain has said, I am free, therefore I must be free. Well, indeed, you are free, beloved hearts. You can do anything you want to in the whole universe. You can do something different every day of your life. You can try a new hairstyle, a new outfit, a new fad, a new type of drug, any day and any hour, and heaven will champion your freedom. But, beloved hearts, is there any future or any progress in being the dilettante? I think not. I have watched many not only go to ruination, but embody as those individuals who have nothing to say about anything, and about whom the heavenly hosts have nothing to say either. Beloved ones, I tell you, the vow is a serious commitment. The vow and the decision means that you abide by it, for you have given your word to the Almighty. The Almighty has accepted your word, and the Almighty sends his angels to assist you in keeping that word. Then you enter a path of discipline, and you follow the teachings I have given, and they are many through this activity alone. And each and every pearl and dictation, I tell you, contains such alchemical keys that if you could perceive how far you could advance on the path as becoming that alchemist, you would begin immediately. In fact, there would be a stampede to the door. And that is exactly what happens at inner levels when souls finally wake up and realize that their greatest desire is to study with me at the cave of symbols. First, the decision and the vow, the determination, the commitment. Then angels will take thee in their charge and protect thee. Then comes the definition of the path and the period of study and chelaship, that you might become, therefore, knowledgeable in those teachings so carefully given, so meticulously pronounced, so much there for you to find.
I think that we can notice in our own lives when we have a non-resolution with God, when our desire and our will and our vow is not there, we don't know who we are, where we're going, what we want to do, what are our goals, and what we are going to accomplish every day. That division in our members and that dealing with that April 23rd syndrome can make us aggravated, out of sorts, grouchy, picky, argumentative, and all those kinds of things. So anytime you see in the world of effects on the surface of your being that kind of agitation, go back to your heart, commune with your God, and rehearse. Why am I on planet Earth? Who am I? And where am I going? This is what we're going to discover as we read The Dweller. Won't you stand now? Sing to our beloved sponsor, El Moria, without whose love and sponsorship we would not be gathered here. We will sing the song, My Guru is Waiting. I think before we start, we'll give you these last moments on the 5 o'clock line of Moria to give your calls to him.
see. I love you, oh Moria, my Lord divine. Now let my heart in yours entwine, and his song calling his voice and glory will make you mine. Through heaven and Moria and earth, and mine shining in lasting sun, and into wind we stay around the world. All the stars above you will sing. I love you, oh Moria, my Lord divine. Now let my heart in yours entwine, and in song calling its voice and glory will make you mine.
Beloved, mighty I am presence from the heart of God. Seal, seal, seal us in the light. Seal us in the ancient tablets of Mem, in our etheric body and the mighty I am presence. I call to you, beloved Lanello and Del Moria, to take these chelas of your heart, bring to their quickening and awakening and awareness those threads, those lines that connect them to the points of experience and embodiments on Atlantis and Lemuria, which they must now deal with as the April 23rd karma. I call for quickening and enlightenment and the great love of the law and of the being of God, that we might quickly make light of this karma, but bear any burden until we have the prize of our immortality and the ability to serve life on earth freely and joyously with abundance. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and the Divine Mother, I seal these hearts in the threefold flame of Lord Lanto. Amen.